Life does not always go as planned. You may be on plan B, C, D, E, F, or G, and that's okay. Life can be beautiful and messy. It doesn't have to be perfect. After crying on my kitchen floor for nearly 2 years when my first husband left, I found my plan B and a depth of resilience I didn't even know I had. I'm Beth Montpas, life coach. Have you ever needed to really reinvent yourself? I redesigned my life by allowing my feelings, forgiving and accepting myself in the new reality, really surrendering. Plus, connecting with others. We don't have to do it alone. Reframing our negative thoughts and emotions, and by not looking too far down the road. Now, I have an incurable joy and zest for life. My favorite hashtag is, what if it's better? If you're looking for motivation and inspiration with other resilient, fun, successful midlife women, keep listening to the Pain to Power podcast. You'll meet amazing women who dropped being the victim and found victory. Listen in to create a spark in you to navigate this wild ride called life that comes with living full out. Oh, welcome, Maren Lenhart. I'm so grateful for this, what I would call like a touchy conversation. And it's touchy only because so many people I know are going through something you've already gone through. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Beth.
Let me read you Maren's bio. She is a public health analyst for a health nonprofit organization here in Iowa, my home state. She cares about your dental health more than you probably do, and is passionate in her focus to improve health and well-being for all community members, particularly our most vulnerable Iowans. Maren received a Master's of Public Health from Des Moines University and bachelor's degree from Iowa State University. She will argue additional education came from volunteering, I bet it did, saying yes to new opportunities, and surrounding herself with people who are brutally honest with you. And I love that official bio, but here is what I truly love is you are human. You're an overcomer of anxiety, of depression, of perfectionism, of being that high achiever syndrome that so many of us find ourselves on.
Absolutely. Yep.
You're a former military wife, a big stand for couples therapy. And right before we hit record, listeners, we were on a whole kick about couples counseling and just the success of that and getting to the good stuff of that. So I'm so glad we had that conversation. And someday I'll have you back and we'll talk all about that.
Sounds fun. Fantastic.
But the conversation that I really want to begin with is your sobriety of 4.5 years. Let me just celebrate with you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Congratulations. I know there was an event that sort of kind of led up to this extra drinking or extra trying to numb yourself out with the death of your grandmother. What else do you want to share about your journey from the beginning with, that's where source of one of your pains is?
That was a source of one of my pains. I think it also helped me realize that I had never actually had a healthy relationship with alcohol. I know we talk about that a lot in our society. We celebrate with alcohol. We drown our feelings. I also say I'm a recovering perfectionist of wanting to do the best and be the best. And that means putting a lot of pressure on myself. And so that was something I turned to help kind of numb and deal with. But yes, 2018, and just knowing that my grandmother was actively dying and being part of that caregiving experience was difficult, as it is for everyone, I believe. That same year, I had a good friend's mother who passed away from breast cancer somewhat unexpectedly. It took a turn pretty quick. And then my ex-mother-in-law had passed away. So kind of boom, 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 boom. And then a week later, I got an OWI. And that was 5 years ago, about 2 weeks ago. And I grew up in a family where that is not something you do. And the shame that was tied to that still gets me. Um, and I did not want to talk about it. And it probably took until the last year before I could talk about it. But that spiraled, those things spiraled. And by the end of 2018, I landed myself in the beautiful mental health unit of Mercy and had a wonderful experience. And thank goodness had the opportunity to take some time off from work and be in a supportive environment where they allowed me to take time off work. Obviously, FMLA exists, but having coworkers who said, "Hey, we believe in you," when I couldn't even believe in myself. And that was from my coworkers all the way up to the CEO level, just allowing that time to heal and kind of rebuild myself. So it was just a lot of life that happened, uh, and a lot of shame. So just sadness and grief, which is normal, on top of a very shameful event that was very unlike myself.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And everybody that's listening, I imagine, can see themselves in one of those scenarios you just described. It's stress. It's the stress of life. Tell me about your history as a social drinker or a heavy drinker or a light drinker, like leading up to this, because I want to understand and the listeners, like, you know, I think everybody kind of wonders, do I have a problem with it? And so tell us what your relationship was it with alcohol early on.
So early on, I was your goody two shoes in high school, did not drink, went to a university within the state that is well known for drinking. Coincidentally, my paternal grandmother had died a couple months before, and that was a major death right before I left for college, and was introduced there and liked that I didn't have to feel my anxious brain running. It just kind of numbed that out. I think I would have a weekend party and be fine the rest of the week. Went into the working world, was fine. My husband at the time deployed to Afghanistan in the late 2000s or 2009, 2010. And what I know now were ruminating thoughts. We have a name for it. I didn't know what it was at the time, but just the wanting to keep everything together at home. Went to grad school to distract myself, which was a positive thing, but also started to go out with friends and just turn it into I can have a couple of higher content IPA delicious beers, uh, and not have to worry about everything I was worrying about. So I would say there was definitely a slow cycle where I was still functional. I could still, so if you were to ask my coworkers, they would say she was still getting her work done. But I felt like crap every single day. And I was just tired and kind of gritchy. And I know they say you don't build up a tolerance, but I firmly believe you do build up a tolerance. And one became three, and then all of a sudden, I would look for opportunities like wine tastings because then I could have fun, and then I would just grab a bottle and finish it on the way home. Just I would look for activities with other friends that would drink too, so I didn't look like I was the only person doing it. Towards the end, I had stepkids in my life, and they would be with their dad because I had not met them yet. I would purposely plan and not I never drank around them, but I would plan and drink by myself in my house. I think that's a huge key is when I think it's okay to have a drink at home, and then when people would ask me, I would say, "No, no, no, I just had one." I was lying to myself, and I 100% believed I was being honest, but I was not being honest with anybody. So, yes, towards that ramping up, I'm not a large human being. So, I think for women, more than 2 days, 2 beers a day is excessive drinking. And I was doing probably 5 to 6 easily. I did black out. I actually don't remember getting my OWI. I was blacked out and don't remember leaving the house. So, that's just, it's yuck. It feels yuck. I want to say that was the only time I've ever driven. That's not true. There's been times you go out for cocktails after work or an event and you feel fine. And I think eventually it catches up with you, and it did for me. So,
Wow, thank you. Gosh, honestly, every person listening is going to hear themselves in this because, you know, with that driving buzzed and
with blacking out and 5 to 6 beers and all of that stuff. Not feeling my anxious brain is
Yeah.
part of the words I heard you say, and I feel like that is so much of why we numb out, whether we scroll or shop or drink or whatever it is that we do. Of course, I'm very interested to hear how you get this anxious brain because it didn't leave you. You still,
Oh,
I'm sure,
no.
yeah. How is tell me what you did instead. And I want to get back to, how you really went to your outpatient and hospitalization and some more details around that of how you did the brave thing
Yeah.
and got help. But I'm really curious about your anxious brain. What do you do today to deal with that?
So I definitely have an anxious brain, and I want to make sure people understand that anxiety is beautiful and amazing. It helps me be creative, helps me be a really good caretaker. When there's an emergency, I thrive because I don't have a chance to ruminate and think, what could I do wrong? I am very consistent with my counseling, personal and couples, but for sure, personal counseling. I take my medicine. I'm historically not a good anti-anxiety, antidepressant medicine taker. Once I feel good, I'd like to stop. And I grew up thinking I was broken because I needed that. I feel better. People around me can tell when I try to sneak off and not take it and kindly call me out. Mm, Journaling, just getting those thoughts out onto paper. I want to tell you, I do a great job exercising. I don't, fell off that wagon during COVID. But of course, biking, just walking the dog. And then my favorite thing is that I have a support group that is a group of women who knit. So we knit and talk about all things sobriety. I would never have told you that I wanted a support group. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and yet I'm really private about some things. But it was like once you find that trusted space, and it was really one person saying, there's two phrases that I stick with me. One is my boss who said, "You got to figure this out, Maren," in the most loving tone ever. And just those words stick with me. The other one is a friend from knitting who said, all she said, it just hit, was, "You're not the only one who's been through this." And I can say that right now, and it doesn't mean the same thing, but just the right time, the right person, the right kindness of, we really aren't alone when we feel alone. And those really low depression, high anxiety moments, you do feel like you suck. You're the worst, and you're the worst mom. You're the worst wife. You're the worst employee. But we aren't alone, and we can see it through. And I get a pretty good success record of seeing it through. So that also helps. Just reminding that I got to just make it through the next hour, and then maybe the next hour. But a combination of all of that. I've got to do all of the things. I can't. I really. And right now, after we get off the call, I will go take my dog for a walk because I need to do that.
Right. To get out and move your body and move it through you. I absolutely love that you said anxiety is a beautiful thing and it can lead to your creativity and your caregiving. So thank you for saying that. It's not all negative. And of course, it's music to my ears to hear you say you found your group and it's you found your people. And that's what my goal or what I'm striving for all the time in Best Life Tribe in that private Facebook group that I'm the admin for. And I love it because people can be raw and real and it feels safe place to say, this is not working in my life. What do you have for me? The support group is everything. And you thought you didn't need it and you
No,
resisted it.
I thought I didn't want people to know my business. And I don't, we can chat about it in different depth, but as part of my outpatient mental health therapy, we were required to go to different support groups. And there were a lot that I didn't like. We had to go to so many per week. And just getting in the practice of walking in, going, this doesn't serve me in the way I want it to, and being comfortable getting up and leaving. But then it was just finding one that clicks. And for some, that might be their faith. But for me, it was this group of women that is online and also in person, and just feeling more comfortable being vulnerable in a trusted space. I think that doesn't mean, I mean, this is pretty hard for me just because this is a whole group of people I don't know, but I also feel confident at this point that it's okay to share because I know I'm not the only person thinking about this. There are others too. And
Right.
I would love for them to be on the other side and have those feelings of, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this like 20 years ago?
Right. So you've probably seen in Best Life Tribe and some of my emails that I am highlighting mocktails
Yes, you
and
are. I
yeah,
love it.
yeah, and really, I feel like it's been no better time to be
Mhm.
sober than
Yep.
now with all the different beers that are zero,
Um,
zero.
one 100%. I used to use that as an excuse too. I used to try to have 2 beers, then I would switch over to an NA, and then I would make the argument that they didn't taste the same, and I probably shouldn't be listing brands, so I won't, but there are 2 for sure, dead ringers for the real thing, that if that's now, I don't drink any beer, any NA beer now because it's a little triggering, but hop water, holy smokes, yum. Yum, yum,
Yeah.
yum. Mocktails are great. You're right. People, it's kind of the next thing. You walk into any grocery store and there's a whole slew of them. So you look at it, and I think there was also a point in time where I did want that soda and lime, and you want to look like you're drinking because you'll notice in social settings everybody has their hand like clenched to something, and I think it's just our normal social anxiety when we're not around our friends and just work events. You want to touch and hold and feel something. That's side note, that's where the knitting is kind of nice because it keeps you busy, but absolutely there's lots of mocktails and ways to still have fun.
And I feel like every time I turn social media on, I am so pleased to see a friend of mine who will shout out, "Hey, I just want to say it's been 8 months that
Yeah.
I've been sober." And
Yep.
then I see all the comments of congratulations. And today I turned it on, and a good cycling friend of ours is shouting out 2 years. And
Oh,
it's interesting to me that I didn't know it was happening. Like 2 years ago, they didn't go public with, "I declare not to," and so I love that now we can celebrate with them. So I feel like it's cool to be so.
it's it's cool that I think in the beginning too, you're scared because I wanted to say that I just stopped is also not honest. There's for sure in the last, maybe the 10 years leading up to the day I actually made the choice to quit. I remember there were times where you like try to control your drinking where you think, okay, I'm just not going to drink during the week. I will just have a couple on the weekend. And I can look back at pictures and ball games where I wasn't drinking for that weekend. And in my head, I'm like, wow, I was trying to quit and I wasn't. You need, sometimes you can't do that silently. There's apps that can, so you can be anonymous. I have one that shows me I've saved $14,000 in the last 4.5 years.
So
So
true.
that means I can go take overseas trips instead.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's been
Yes. Can we talk more about that? Trying to control my drinking because again, I'm kind of jumping to, oh, it's, cool to be sober. And I feel like there's a big dark middle of where people aren't to the place of declaring sobriety and they're still in the mess of it. Hearing you say your OWI was the event that you to a big change. But
well, it should have been. It should have been, but no, I made it go 5 more months later. I took 2 weeks off after that. I took 2 weeks off. I had a friend come in from out of state, and we had some, like, white wine, which wasn't even my jam. No, I got so, so, so incredibly sad one evening. That would be something my depression would creep up because once that buzz runs, like, wears off, you get that anxiousness, and I'm like, "Why am I" just the negative self-talk, and I'm like, "I just want it to be done." And so that actually landed me in the hospital, and I made the choice to stay and had my better half and my boss there with me. So I've got a very how cool is that?
yeah,
Yeah.
boy, are you
Um,
loved and supported.
yeah. So you would think that would be my end all, but no, I wasn't quite ready still. So
Yeah. How do people get sober or handle it or manage whatever they need to do? You tell it trying to control my drinking
right.
before they hit a big rock bottom. Like, did anything, what led you to there? Was it linking your, oh my gosh, when I drink, then kind of the mental health piece together. And what I hear you saying, you got out of the shame blame game. You
Yeah.
actually started realizing, oh, these are linked together. So I get to help myself. I don't even know what question I'm trying to ask, but there's so many people that are in the middle, the messy
Yeah,
middle.
it's
They
yeah.
aren't ready to hospitalize themselves and so I'm just wondering else is there? Because what I see is that you didn't stay stuck in your pain. You weren't still talking about all the pain of your life. You have the power part. You
Right.
have the I have been set free. You have the freedom. How do we get people there? Some of that freedom that you have without a hospitalization. What else is there?
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly. I honestly didn't realize there were other options besides hospitalization and counseling. And that's a little bit frustrating on my part because I am in the public health world and I feel like I should have known that. There I didn't know. I think I would read, I love myself a good Brene Brown book now and again too, to read some of that. But I think towards the end it just became a cycle of numb, not sure what to do, feel like crap, dog on myself all day long, get my work done, and then go home and like re-drown. And it became a cycle. That became a cycle. I think what I could have done differently, knowing so there's things like what is it, dry January, and I think those are interesting because if it's hard to not drink for a week, that's you giving yourself information that, hey, maybe there's something else going on. And not that that means you have to ever stop, but it's what are you trying to hide and shove down inside you? And for me, that was shame. But for others, that could be reaching out to your EAP that you might have with work. Calling a counselor and being vulnerable and word salading everything, that's really vulnerable too, and I don't think is for everybody. But knowing that you can anonymously pop into any sort of mental health group, not just a recovery. There's one that's about meditation. There's one that's all meditation based. There's smart recovery. There's lots of different programs that are focused on alcohol, but really it's about your mental health and how you I don't ever think it's the alcohol. I think it's our brain around it, our mental health around it. Um, the hospitalization was definitely, I didn't know what else to do. And I was laying there, it was offered. I just knew I didn't want to feel like how I felt again. And I was fortunate enough to go through an outpatient program where I learned it was the only one that was alcohol use disorder and mental health. And so you learned about the connection, and I think it was also for other, like, hard drugs. My drug of choice is alcohol. Just knowing that there's programs. So in the Des Moines area, which I know nationwide, there's others, but, NAMI and Ellipsis and just your hospital centers, just being open. I had a great physician that I had been with for 25 years. And when I finally was honest with her, she said, "Hey, I'll go to a meeting with you. Here's some resources." How cool is that? Nobody
That's
says
really
that.
neat.
I was so expecting to hear the shame of, "How could you do this? You're making your parents, you're not making your parents proud." That's a big one for me is to not make my parents proud. Well, certainly all the stuff I was doing was not making my parents proud, but more importantly, not making myself proud.
Yeah.
Just being okay with asking for help. And that can look like writing something, since you can hear I'm getting choked up even saying it. That can be sending an email to your provider going, I need some extra support. What does that look like? Free insurance, anonymous. What are those things? The other thing that's kind of maybe that a listener might do is they have those little like drinking quizzes and you you try to mess around with the scores. I don't know. Anybody who's gone into their general practice and they're like, "How many drinks do you have a week?" And you're sitting there like wrestling with yourself, that's probably a red flag. Probably a red
Right.
flag. Doesn't mean
Right.
you have to stop, but maybe, sit there and examine your relationship with it and what are you really wanting?
Yeah. I love the question. What are you trying to hide? That is such a good take home from this interview because anytime as a life coach, when I meet with a client and they have a thing, something about their life that is not working, I always feel like there's a force way to handle it and there's a flow way to handle it. And the
Yeah.
world tends to go force. Well, let's look at your morning routine. Let's get you meditating and a good night and evening routine and all this stuff is good. It's really good stuff. The flow part of it is why. Why is this? What's underneath this? And that's what I hear you saying is instead of us just throwing this force at it, we can quit drinking for the month of January. We can try all these things. It's also asking, what are you trying to hide? Or what are you trying to cover up or shove down or push down or cover up? I feel like that's the big kind of why or what question that a lot of people probably aren't asking.
And sometimes we don't know. So I am very passionate about trauma-informed care, which for you could be a whole separate episode with actually somebody who's a trauma-informed care expert. But we all have traumatic things that have happened to us, whether that be a divorce or an incarcerated parent or a parent who abused alcohol themselves. Sometimes when we're younger, we push all of that down. I know I pushed a lot of the shit. With my marriage before to being a military spouse, I wasn't the one overseas doing that hard work. And why should I be feeling that way? And so just pushing all of that stuff down. I never even looked at it until maybe the last couple of years where all of a sudden it popped up. I'm like, there's still stuff. There is still stuff. We just have little barnacles we have to revisit and just having the awareness, acknowledgement, and then going, I'm going to let this go right now. And if it doesn't go, then that tells me I need to bring it up to my counselor or in my group or with my physician.
Mm. Asking for support is a huge theme of what's working about your life, Maren. I hear you just quoting your resources and
You're the
being,
good listener.
yeah. And I love it because I think a lot of us think we have to kind of silently suffering. We're sad and disappointed and suffering. And instead of raising our hand and saying, help, I need some help.
And I like this. I don't know if you have this. I'm holding it up to the screen. Anytime I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm supposed to halt and ask myself if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. Do you know that one? I
Yeah,
didn't.
that's such a good one.
It is a good one.
I'm going to put halt on there. That's good. And I love that you have it as a sticky note right on your desk.
I do.
Oh my gosh, how fast our 30 minutes goes. But I want to give you, well, number one, people, if they want to connect with you, they can find you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But I want to give you just, the final word of what would you say to someone who is using alcohol and not sure if it's a problem or not? I'm guessing, I guess you said the go to your physician. I guess just advice that even soothing words like, an encouragement hug to somebody who might be not where you are, sort of in your power, having 4.5 years under your belt of sobriety. They're still in the wrestling phase.
Yeah.
What words would you share with them?
Well, I want to say I don't take my 4.5 years for granted. And each new day, I have to just focus on today. Been fortunate that I haven't felt strongly about drinking, but I also know that can change because I've seen enough people that's happened to. But for somebody who might be wrestling with the idea, denial is a really strong feeling too. I think it's consider the possibility of just being uncomfortable for a little bit for a really good outcome down the road. And if you don't like it, you can always go back. If you're like, this isn't for me, or this group or this program, or I asked my doctor, I don't like it. If you start to feel better, then, just feel that. I think the other thing is just really feeling your emotions and what's beneath them because we react, but then there's something below usually and being honest about that. And I'll be really honest that I still have to work on that. And that's why we have counseling.
Yeah. Well,
But but
I'm glad you touched on that because this isn't kind of a one and done. You're on Success Street, you know,
right.
and I too wake up every day with sort of the rackets and the grungies and the something about my life that I get to release and let go or let it run my day. So I think you're being real about it. You're never finished. It's never over. You're always a student.
Yes, that is the perfect way to say it. You're always a student. And I've had some real, just I would say normal what we have in life, cancer diagnosis, mental health, like real life things come up very recently where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have the capacity to handle this really hard. Bleep out every word that wants to come out right now. I can do this because I don't have this yucky, I just feel so much better. And I think that is a common thing I hear from a lot of people in sobriety is that that does not make our problems go away. That's a fun tip. You think everything's going to go away. Now you still got to work your shit out. Excuse my language. You got to work it
Yeah.
out. But it makes it possible because you don't have this layer of heavy, sick feeling. So just encouraging somebody to just have a moment of discomfort for a significantly wonderful payoff.
Oh, amen. That's a beautiful note to end on. And before we hit end, I want to start this new tradition with everyone that I interview. And that is at the end of the interview, I would like to acknowledge you or what I see in your life. So if you're open to it, you get to just receive now.
Okay, thank
Ma-
you.
Maren, I acknowledge you for being a badass, brave, willing to look the hard stuff of life in the eye. And with your support, maybe your boss and your husband and your support group, you're willing to let others support you, which screams the message to the rest of the world. We don't have to do it alone.
You do not have to do it alone. Thank you. That is so sweet.
Mm.
Thank you. Genuinely. I appreciate it, Beth.
You're welcome. Thank you for being on the Pain to Power podcast. And listeners, we'll be back with another episode soon. Bye, everybody.
So grateful you tuned in to another episode of Pain to Power podcast. Each month, I'm committed to bringing you juicy, raw, real life stories and shine a light on the women whose lives are often very messy, and yet they dropped being a victim to their life circumstances and stood in victory in their thoughts and emotions. I love to inspire and motivate women to love their life. If you want to receive more inspiration, come play in my private Facebook group called Best Life Tribe for inspiration on the daily, or join my email list for connections, strategies, and tips. Join at bethmontpas.com. I am a certified coach, trainer, and speaker. I lead inspiring private and small group workshops, resulting in authentic coaching in a vibrant community. I host personal and group retreats as well as virtual gatherings designed to ignite your life and get you back to loving your life. Let's get social. Connect with me on Facebook at Beth Montpas Coach or Instagram at Beth Montpas or on LinkedIn at Beth Montpas.